Slavophilism and Theosophy, the Doctrine of the Heart, the Russian Soul, and Helena P. Blavatsky's Mission. Carlos Cardoso Avellino. It was in the United States, India, and the United Kingdom that H. P. Blavatsky lived and worked most, since her public work for the good of mankind began in September 1875. The first country to receive a large amount of magnetism from that great source of occult energies was her native Russia, which then included Ukraine. Born in the Ukrainian city of Yekaterinoslav, later called Dnepropetrovsk, HPB kept in touch with Russia all her life while working in various parts of the world. She exchanged letters with her Russian relatives. Members of her family visited her in London. Russian papers published a number of articles by her. Russia plays the role of a spiritual, geographical, and cultural bridge between Asia and Europe. As long as H.P.B. Blavatsky lived, she was the perfect expression of such a bridge. This is one of the reasons why Russia has a long-term importance for the Theosophical movement. However, in the geographical territory of Russian culture, the original Theosophical movement, as inspired by H.P.B.'s writings, didn't exist until the early 2020s. It was only in March 2022 that the Independent Lodge of Theosophists started working in Russian language. One must sadly admit that among Russian Theosophists the pseudo-esotericism of false clairvoyants like Charles Leadbeater and Annie Besant is still influential. In the country where H.P.B. was born, the writings of those who abandoned ethics and the original Theosophy continue to attract attention and receive goodwill in circles. The authentic Theosophical movement must be strengthened in Russia. Note: the present article refers to the Theosophical movement as such. It doesn't refer to Agni Yoga, the movement founded by Nicholas and Helena Roerich in 1920. In order to discuss Agni Yoga, another article would be necessary. However, we often avoid discussing movements other than the Theosophical. The end of the note. Why should they be so difficult and take such a long time to begin? The answer is provided by a paradox present in the Russian soul. Since the early 19th century, Russia has had two strong cultural trends: Slavophilism and the Westernizer trend, or the feeling of respect for Russian culture and the thoughtless adhesion to Western culture. The pseudo-theosophy of Annie Besant, which has been dominant in the movement, is Westernizer, and has no true connection with Russian spiritual tradition or Eastern culture. Slavophiles and Westernizers. Philosopher N. O. Lusky wrote, "In the history of Russian philosophy, and especially of Russian political thought, it is usual sharply to contrast two mutually opposed tendencies, represented by the Slavophiles and the Westernizers. The Slavophiles strove to work out a Christian world conception, basing it on the teaching of the Eastern Fathers of the Church and on orthodoxy in the particular form given to it by the Russian people. They immoderately idealized Russia's political past and Russian national character. They highly valued the specific peculiarities of Russian culture and insisted that Russian political and social life had developed and must go on developing along its own paths, different from those of the Western nations. In their opinion, Russia's task in relation to Western Europe consisted in imparting health to it through the spirit of orthodoxy and Russian social ideals. and in helping Europe to solve its political problems, both internal and international, in accordance with Christian principles. The Westernizers, on the contrary, Losky proceeds, believed that Russia had to learn from the West and go through the same process of development. They wanted Russia to assimilate European science and secular enlightenment. They took little interest in religion, or if they were religious, they did not see the value of orthodoxy and were inclined to exaggerate the shortcomings of the Russian Church. With regard to social problems, some of them greatly valued political freedom and others supported socialism in one form or another. Some historians of Russian culture believe that these were opposed tendencies have been preserved to this day under different names and in different forms. It should be noted that some Westernizers passed through several stages in their development, and either at the beginning or at the end of their life considerably departed from the typical Westernizer's standpoint. Note: History of Russian Philosophy by N. L. Losky, London: George Allen and Unwin Limited, first published in 1952, 416 pages, see page 47. The end of the note. Slavophiles were not xenophobic. They preferred deep thinking and rejected the idea of blindly imitating the West, as Russian Westernizers tended to do. They were closer to the Asian aspects of Russian soul. They were also open to the influence of Western philosophers, which since the 18th century was strong in Russia. HPV was a cosmopolitan. She questioned Western society and its materialistic inclinations. In more than one aspect, she saw Russia with the eyes of a Slavophile, and Mikhail Katkov, the editor of the Russian language articles by HPV, was a Slavophile of note. Being herself a bridge between East and West, H.B. lived long years in Western countries while teaching Eastern esoteric wisdom. In her articles she expressed deep admiration for Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, two Slavophiles. Her Theosophy has a significant common ground with the views of Alexei Khamikov, the main Slavophile thinker. She taught, for instance, that only an altruistic mind can attain to true spiritual enlightenment, and Alexei Khamikov teaches the same, as one can see in the following paragraphs. The most profound truths of thought, the whole higher truth of the Theos striving, are accessible only to reason inwardly organized in full moral harmony with the all-existent reason, and the invisible mysteries of divine and human things are revealed only to reason thus organized. Of the universal laws of the will in reason or the reasoning will, the first, supreme, most perfect law is, for the undistorted soul, the law of love. Consequently, accord with this law can preeminently strengthen and expand our mental vision, and to this law we must subjugate, and with it we must harmonize the stubborn discord of our intellectual powers. Only by performing this feat can we hope for the most complete development of reason. Communion in love is not only useful but wholly necessary for the attainment of truth, and the attainment of truth is based on this communion and is impossible without it. Note: A master of wisdom wrote to a theosophist, "At favorable times we let loose elevating influences, which strike various persons in various ways. It is the collective aspect of many such thoughts that can give the correct note of action. We show no favours. The best corrective of error is an honest and open-minded examination of all facts, subjective and objective. Letters from the Masters of the Wisdom, first series, compiled by C. Generadasa, TPH, India, 4th edition, 1948, letter 64, pages 111, 112. See also in our websites the article One for All and All for One by Carl C. Evelyn at the end of the note. Inaccessible to individual thought, truth is accessible only to the combination of thoughts linked by love. This feature sharply distinguishes Orthodox teaching from all other teachings, from Latinism, which depends on external authority, and from Protestantism, which emancipates the individual into the desert of rational abstraction. Note: Khomякov is here quoted by Nikolai Berdyaev. The fragments are reproduced from a text by Berdyaev included in the book on spiritual unity, a Slavophil reader, compiled, translated, and edited by Boris Yakim and Robert Bird, Lindisfarne Books, New York, 1998, 165 pages. See pages 138, 139. In despite of the common ground between HBB's writings and Khomyakov's, there seemed to be no direct reference to him in her writings. The end of the note. Khomyakov had a mystical community centers and not authoritarian view on religion. Note: read the article Alexei Khomyakov on Brotherhood by C.C. Avelin at the end of the note. And this is Theosophical. While writing on the Christianity of Russia, on the other hand, H.B. Blavatsky referred to the nation as the only country where the pure idol of Christ is still preserved. And according to Khomyakov, the Eastern Church, invisible, transcendent, made of universal love, is sustained by an inner spirit, the living spirit of Christ. Note: as to H.B.'s words on the pure ideal of Christ, see Neo-Buddhism by H.B. Blavatsky in her collected writings, volume 12, page 148. The article Neo-Buddhism is published in the associated websites under the title of Answer to a Russian Philosopher regarding Khomyakov's view on the inner spirit of Christ. Examine the Cambridge History of Russia, Volume 2, edited by Dominic Levin, Cambridge University Press, United Kingdom, first paperback edition, 2015, 765 pages. See page 127, the end of the note. Besides her text in Russian language, Blavatsky wrote many articles in English on Russia. She discussed its literature, its traditions, and social reality. She personally translated several texts by Leo Tolstoy.